Alright, welcome back everyone to another Triad Expeditions video. And in this episode we are going to be installing the Kinsmen 270 awning in the right hand configuration. So that is a key thing that you need to keep in mind when you're purchasing this awning, is whether or not you want to mount it on the driver's side or the passenger side. Driver's side being the left hand mount and the passenger side being the right hand mount. Early on, the right hand mount wasn't actually available, so I think that we have received one of the first right hand mounts, which is pretty exciting. We ordered this, I should say we put a deposit on a awning back in January, and this is currently June of 2019, so it was a full 6 months to receive the awning, but definitely worth the wait. We knew it was going to be a while going into it, and Matt there at Kinsmen Awning is working his butt off to get these out. One thing to keep in mind also is that there was a longer delay for shipping it out because of the fact that he had to change companies that is producing the Sunbrella canvas part of the awning. And I wanted to show this to you as far as how it looks. It comes in a box that's the same length as it, and it weighs 77 pounds. Matt ships UPS, and it came pretty quick, actually, just a couple days from the factory there in North Carolina. So the mounts actually came separately, and the reason why is he makes a variation of different mounts. These mounts here are for the 1-inch round bar that is going to be on the exterior of our FJ Cruiser. It does come with the hardware for mounting the actual mounts to the awning, and then the awning on the back side here has several different holes, and we're going to end up using the holes here, which is the rear part of the awning, and then we're actually going to have to end up using these holes, and I'll show you why. So let's walk over to the FJ Cruiser, and this is a Baja EXP rack. For those of you that have not seen this before, not familiar with it, we're actually going to be mounting the mount in this area right here because of clearance issues in the front part of the EXP mount. That's normally a basket, just like it's being used for, and then the other mount will be back here at this corner. And because of the cantilever effect that the awning has, Matt makes a really nice custom awning mount that he said absolutely is necessary for the amount of cantilever effect created by the weight of the arms of the awning and also the wind. So that is something to keep in mind too. You're going to really want to purchase his awning mounts to properly install this. So that's not really an option in his mind, and he would know. He's definitely put this awning to the test. So we are going to have to move our MaxTrax mounts, and whether or not we'll be actually able to mount our MaxTrax in this location, we'll have to see. So let's get to it, and next thing I'm going to show is the actual awning mounts mounted up onto the Baja rack. Alright, so I have one of the mounts, the rear mount, which is, for lack of better terms, the pivot point for the awning in the rear. And they're held on just with 2 clamps that are steel, the whole bracket steel. The torque settings, I don't have the instructions in front of me, so that's something to keep in mind. Matt's finishing up the instructions for the right hand mount, and those will be along shortly, so you'll have some instructions. And I just want to remind everybody that when I show you how to do something like an install video here, you really do need to take everything into consideration for yourself, so that you don't do any damage to your vehicle, and nothing here is all-inclusive, or basically gives you all the steps that you should consider when doing your install. So I tighten these down fairly tight. The thing about it is that the way that this is designed, being that this goes on the rear bar like a cantilever, it doesn't have to be extremely tight, because it's not actually going to want to rotate because of you're making an L with the awning itself. So hopefully that makes some sense. One of the things, and once again I do not have any instructions, but one of the things I figured out that I thought made it pretty nice was I actually took the other bracket and I stuck it up there nice and square to the awning there. And what that will do for you is, if you put your seams together, that'll get it nice and square with the rack, and it gets it the proper spacing away from the rack. So I think most of you will pick up on what I'm saying. You want the rear bracket to be spaced away from the side evenly, so that when it gets down there, the awning itself is nice and square with the rack. So if you just go ahead and mount it there loosely, and then take this other awning bracket up there, you can make this nice and flush, and you can put your seam together so that as this thing rotates this way on that bar, this is now nice and perpendicular to the rack itself. So hopefully that makes sense to you. Definitely made it pretty easy to mount this on here precisely. Alright, so I have the other bracket on here, and with this other bracket, I've left it loose. What I did was I measured the holes that are on the back of the awning to kind of get an idea of where I wanted the second bracket to land. This bracket here, it's obviously not adjustable. It's going to go right where it's at. You can't change that. So all your measurements are going to be on the back, are we basically figuring out where this bracket here is going to land. And then on a Baja rack, obviously you have your crossbars that you need to consider when putting this up there. And all of that is for an effort to get it located somewhere that when you put the awning up there, you might just have to bump it left or right just a little bit for it to line up with the 4 holes that go on the back of the awning. So I've left it loose enough. This is definitely a 2-person job. I'm going to have my wife help me. She's going to hold it up there at that end. We'll put some bolts in there, and then we'll, I'll have her hold this end down here while I bump the bracket back and forth. So, alright, that'll be the next step, is actually placing the awning up there and running the bolts to the back. Alright, making preparations to go ahead and put this awning up here. I'm going to show you how I'm going to go about it and attempt to do it by myself, which I don't advise because it is very, very heavy. And definitely you don't want to drop the awning, but I am under a time constraint, so I'm going to do what I don't recommend to do. And so here's the 4 holes. I've marked them. Those are the rear pivot point, and then I've went ahead and marked my holes here with a grease pencil for the place where the second mount is going to go. That's midway down the FJ, and I'm going to go ahead and cut those. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use some Gorilla Tape to hold my bolts in place on the back side of the mounting. So the bolts will go from the inside out, and I'll show you that here in a second. So to better clarify the detail that I was talking about, I'm actually using some Gorilla Tape and then just putting the bolt right in on the Gorilla Tape. And what I'll do is I'll put it in the hole from the inside. Take you over here and show you what I'm talking about here. So I've made my holes into the cover, and on the inside here I'm going to fish it around from this way and run the bolt through here and push that Gorilla Tape up so that it's going to hold the bolt in place as it protrudes through the cover. And then these are 14 millimeter, and then here is the nut that will go on the back side. So no washers or anything. High quality hardware. Everything is just really overbuilt and just really high quality, so I want to make sure I get that feedback to you right now as far as how everything is put together. Alright, one more detail. Take note that there's 2 different size bolts. The pivot end, the rear end of the awning, uses a larger bolt, and that will take a 14 millimeter wrench. The other smaller size will take a 13 millimeter wrench. So on the smaller bolts, the one thing that is going to be challenging is that the actual awning is really close to these bolts, and you can't really reach in there from the side like I could on the other side and put the tape from the back side. So this method here, I'm actually just using small strips of the Gorilla Tape, just tearing small strips off, and then hopefully you can pick up on the detail here. I just put them here at the bottom of the screw, just wrap it around, and that will hold it in place. and now I'll be able to bring my bag over and poke the holes through there. These will keep the bolts in place so that I can put the nuts on the back side without them pushing through the holes or falling out of the holes and then not being able to access it. Eventually I'll be able to open the awning completely and tighten them down even better. I think that's really what I'm gonna have to do, since I really can't get to a wrench too easily. I'm gonna have to open the bag up and get here and access it from this side. So hopefully that helps save you some frustration. The screws were a little bit hard to get through there, but not too bad, especially using the tape to keep them in place. Alright, I wanted to show you how I'm rigging this to be able to put this up here by myself. I'm using some plywood and then I've slid it underneath the Baja rack. I don't recommend you do this, and I'll tell you the reason why is because first off, you're going to scratch your paint when you do it, and second, there is always the potential that you could bend or dent your roof. So that's the reason why I'm not recommending you do this, though. You know, do it at your own risk type thing. It will distribute the weight, and I'm putting a towel down that I'll keep in place and tuck underneath there right before I lift this up here. The roof is Linexed, so my roof is a little bit tougher than probably most applications, but it's going to basically allow me to do most of my work at this end and let a lot of the weight rest on there as I balance it up there to put the bolts through the holes in the rear and put the nuts on. So, alright, I'll let you know how it worked out. Alright, so I was having so much fun putting this awning on that I kind of forgot I needed to videotape some. So, alright, let me talk about a little bit of what happened. Went really well. I'll start with that. I got some bolts to tighten up still there in the middle. Now that it's completely open, I'll be able to access those. So that was kind of the reason for opening it and getting a little ahead of the game. The tape worked really good. It kept the bolts in place. There was a couple of them that backed out that I wasn't able to get a nut on the back side of it, but other than that, it worked out really good. The thing to keep in mind is in the back, I still would rather not have any threads going towards the Sunbrella awning. Nothing to catch on anything as far as the tarp and whatnot, so I'm going to leave it the way it is. But there was some clearance issues with the bolts up against the Baja rack, and I'll probably end up having to switch around the bottom bolts here in the middle, because the bottom two also go up against the rack. So that'd be interesting to see how I end up getting those bolts switched around because of the clearance issues. So hopefully, you know, just keep that in mind. You're gonna have some clearance issues like most things when you deal with awnings. The poles here does not come with the awning. These are actually something I picked up for another project, and you can get them on Amazon, and they're called Green Elephant. So I'm actually going to pass this along to Kinsmen Awning because they're really high quality. They extend in two different sections and screw tight. So they're pretty long, so if you really did have like a drop off or something next to where you have your awning set up, then you would be able to really still be able to put your poles out. I think I need to tighten it up completely. I don't have the strap really tight, so I think that's what the slack that you see in the awning right now. I need to swing this around and get the strap going down the side of the FJ somehow. Maybe I'll put a carabiner or something that I can easily access. This is the new the Kinsmen awning, the shower stall shown here. And then as earlier in the video I told you that I probably would not be able to mount the MaxTrax where I had them. I ended up using the Gzilla design awning, MaxTrax mounts, and I put them in the interior of the Pelican case there, drilled holes in the Pelican case, put the MaxTrax brand pins, the rotating pins there to pin kit, mounting kit that MaxTrax makes for their MaxTrax, and then put some silicone underneath those MaxTrax pins to seal the this holes. That Pelican case will be primarily used for wet objects anyways, shower objects, the pump and stuff. I put drain holes in the bottom so that it would drain out. But enough about that. I just wanted to mention that because it's not really worthy of a video by itself. So my little contraption worked out really good. I actually didn't really put any weight on it, which was good. It was kind of more of a safety net, just in case I lost my footing or something, that, you know, I wasn't going to drop it on that end, because I was more oriented towards the other end to be able to get those nuts on there. So really happy with it so far. I'm going to stop the video, finish it up, and then give you some final thoughts. Alright, apologize for the wind noise. It is pretty windy out here, but it is a testament to this awning. Luckily the wind's blowing in the right direction, so it's not really putting too much stress on it. It is very sturdy, and it's probably one of the most sturdy awnings on the market, in my opinion, because this is without poles, and you can see how the trees over there in the distance are blowing around, and pretty good amount of wind out here. And then if you look at the awning and the way that the wind is moving it, it's not really moving it much at all. We do have the poles. I showed you those earlier. I plan on putting those down just to kind of make things even a little more sturdy, and obviously you can put guy wires too if you need to, but I just wanted to set it up real quick. I did end up having to move my kayak back to be able to clear that last arm to swing around, but literally it's just 3 straps, loosen up, push it back, and then it will clear. I don't really want to leave it off the back that far. I think it's still within legal limits, but I don't really want to leave it back that far if I don't have to, so even for weight distribution purposes. Okay, so a couple things to keep in mind. I still need to put a couple more bolts in. The middle bolts here underneath, you do need to put the bottom ones in first if you have like a Baja rack with a 1-inch bar, because there's not enough clearance to run the bolts the other direction. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to collapse it here in a second. I'm going to put those last couple bolts in. Something to keep in mind, because when I was showing you earlier, I put all 4 of them in the awning going towards the vehicle, and that's not going to work. You are going to have some clearance issues with this bottom right bolt also. So just keep that in mind, that it is going to be very tight. You may end up having to run that one the opposite direction too for your particular vehicle. So I just don't want you to do something and then have to redo it. So definitely consider that when you are installing your awning also. Another thing I want to point out here is the bag right here, the end of the bag. Just be very careful you don't get it pinched between the stopper here that you pull down that automatically engages as you swing it all the way around. So just be aware of that. You want to have that bag nice and flat, and then as you open it, you just want to make sure that you're not pinching it between there, because I actually did that. So be careful of that. But looks pretty awesome, pretty excited about it, and I think if you're looking for a nice quality awning, I think this is a good choice. Made in the USA, the only one made in the USA that I know of. So you know, definitely give Kinsmen Hardware a call or email and get yourself set up with one of these. So if you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments below. Everybody take care. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. We're always coming out with new videos, and we're going to be coming out with a lot of videos this year, and a couple trips eventually this year towards the end of the year. So make sure to subscribe if you want to see those videos and be notified. Hit the bell if you want to be notified when those videos come out. Thanks a lot, everybody. Take care. Be safe.